Why does Saul continue to pursue David? You know, go back a little ways to the cave at En-Gedi. David spared his life. Saul repented, said some really nice things. Basically, I'm sorry, I'm not going to hurt you, and even acknowledged that David would be king. So you think, okay, this is over now. And of course it's not. So why doesn't he keep his word and leave David alone? What's wrong with him?
He has a lot of mixed, I'm sorry.
First, second.
Well, God has given him a vexing spirit.
Absolutely.
So the man's not in his right mind.
That's right.
And the other thing is, if you want to put him in his right mind, he wants Jonathan to become the king after him, not David.
Yes. So there's a great deal of jealousy. But apart from the jealousy, he has this distressing spirit from the Lord, and he's not right. He is not right. Yes.
Jealousy is what I'm going to say.
Yes.
Ever since Goliath was killed, jealousy has been a part of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so this continues. Now, we finished last time talking about Nabal and Abigail. And that's where we finished. And Elon said Abigail was one of his favorite women in the Bible. Apparently David thought so too. Because David took her for his wife. He proposed at least. He didn't just send and have some men grab her. He at least sent a proposal. She accepted. And Abigail became his wife. But at the end of chapter 25, he took another wife, Ahinoam, a Jezreelitess. So these two are in addition to Michal, the daughter of Saul. And we read in chapter 26, I guess there at the beginning, that Saul had taken her back. So he really didn't have her. But now he's got two wives. There's going to be more. There are going to be more. At one point soon, we're going to read about 6 sons of David of 6 different wives. Doug.
I'm just going to say, I mean, I may be wrong, but David's in hiding, right?
Right. He's running.
And he's got men with him, we know.
Yeah.
So now he's got wives with him?
He's got wives with him too.
Okay.
They are with him also. And my first question today is, why did God tolerate polygamy? Why did he tolerate it? Why didn't he say, whoa, you're a man after my own heart. You can't do this. You can't have multiple wives. The Bible never condones it, by the way. The Bible never condones this. Abraham, at the suggestion of Sarah, took the handmaid so that they could have an heir. Remember? The Bible never condoned that.
May have been to repopulate after the ark.
Yeah. So there's that. There's that whole issue there. Jacob had 12 sons and some daughters by 4 women. Rachel, Leah, Bilhah, and Zilpah, handmaids of those 2. Bible never condoned it, but God tolerated it. He tolerated it.
Doesn't it say someplace in the law that kings, he told the kings, do not have more than one wife because they'll lead you away from me?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The law of Moses, when God tolerated this whole king business, his instructions to the kings were one wife. Now, you'll remember that when...
Deuteronomy 17, sorry.
Yeah, it's in Deuteronomy 17. And you'll also remember that when the disciples asked Jesus, why did Moses allow all this divorce? For practically any reason. Because he had just taught them about marriage, divorce, and remarriage. And he said from the beginning, it what? It was not so. The Bible never condoned any of that. Genesis 3. A man shall leave his father and his mother and cleave unto his wife, not wives, and they two will become what? One flesh. From the beginning, it was never that way. But God's tolerating this. Why?
Well, he said the hardness of their hearts.
Moses gave them that right because of the hardness of their hearts. Moses was 400 years before this. So it's just out there. God chose to tolerate it. Hardness of the hearts or for whatever reason. And I don't know any more to say about it than that, other than to say it's not God's plan. It wasn't His plan from the beginning, and the Bible never condoned these polygamy things. And then you have the Mormons who years ago latched onto this and had multiple wives. The Mormon church now does not support polygamy, but you've got these factions like Warren Jelks, you remember a few years ago, he was taking teenage girls for wives, and you know he ended up going to prison. You remember that story. Frank, did you have a comment?
Islam allows 4 wives,
Okay.
and they're going the Old Testament example.
Yeah, they're going back, and it's totally wrong. Yes, sir.
One of the bad things about multiple marriages, the unhappiness that it caused. One of the parts, one of my women that I like in the Old Testament is Leah.
Yeah.
She has just had a baby boy, and she makes the most pitiful statement. Now my husband will love me.
Yeah.
You want to take that woman, hold her in your arms and say, honey, no matter what you do, he's never going to love you the way you want to be loved.
Right. So there's the cultural element here that goes all the way back. There is this second place, subordinate position that the woman was in. That was cultural, that wasn't God. All right. So we don't really have a good answer for this question. But we know from the beginning, and Jesus hit the nail on the head, from the beginning it was not so. This is not what God's plan is. Not at all. So now, as we move through the next lesson here, Saul doesn't let up. He takes 3,000 men and pursues David into the wilderness of Ziph. And you would think by now David could have killed him in the cave. So you would think by now David would just fight back. It's one of the great things about David, a man after God's own heart, that he has respect for God's anointed. And he's not going to do that. And when asked in our lesson this week, and we don't have time to go into detail about everything, we're going to just go down our list on our study guide and try to move through this because this is a long lesson. But David, in essence, said, God will take care of Saul in His due time. He said he'll probably be killed in battle. He's probably going to die in a battle. And David's thought process to me is, God took the bear, God took the lion, God took Goliath, God's going to take care of Saul. And so that's what's happening here. Someone had a comment. Yeah, Doug.
I just wonder if some of David's men might have been whispering in his ear, like, how are we going to do this?
Yeah. And in this lesson right here, Abishai, Joab's son, said, why don't we kill him? So here's the setting. Wilderness of Ziph. Saul and 3,000 men are encamped, and all around they're camped. And somewhere in the center is Saul and his inner circle. And they're asleep. And so David said, who'll go with me? And he asked Ahimelech, not Ahimelech, the priest that was murdered. This is another Ahimelech who's actually of another nationality. He's an Amalekite. And Abiathar, who will go with me. And so look with me there in chapter 26. And who will go down with me to Saul in the camp? And I said Abiathar, but it's Abishai. I'm sorry, the names start to clog my brain. Abishai said, I'll go with you. Now, there's some new names creeping in here. This is one of them. Joab is another one. Joab is a commander with David, basically, and Abner is the commander with Saul. These two names are going to go with us for a while. They're going to become prevalent in our story, Joab and Abner. But Abishai says, I'll go. And so they slip into the camp. And we know from a little bit later, nobody woke up. They just walked right in there, past the guards, past the sentries. walked right in there to the center of the camp. How did that happen?
God put him to sleep.
God put them to sleep, Scott. He caused this deep sleep to come on them. And we read that. The Bible tells us that at the end of this story. The reason they didn't wake up is God took care of that and they slept through it all. So David and Abishai approached Saul. And by Saul is what? His spear is stuck in the ground. And what else? A jug of water. And so Abishai says, oh, God's delivered him. Let me pin him to the ground with this spear. And he said, I won't have to do it a second time. That's how confident he was. I won't have to do it a second time. Let me just pin him to the ground. David said, no. We're not going to kill the Lord's anointed. But he said, but take his spear and take the jug of water. Very reminiscent of the cave of En-Gedi when he cut the robe. So he takes it and he goes outside the camp on a hillside and he waits. And he's got the spear, the king's spear, and the jug of water. And so he calls out, but he doesn't call out to the king, Saul, directly. He calls out to who? Abner. And basically he says to Abner in our language, what kind of man are you that you can't look after the king, God's anointed? You ought to die. You should be killed for not looking after the king. Well, of course he couldn't because God caused this sleep to fall on him. So he assaults Abner. Saul hears this. And once again, Saul repents. Once again, acknowledges David. Once again says, you're a better man than me, basically. So let's look at our study guide. Let's move down the page here and see what we may or may not have missed. The name of this lesson is A Fearful Heart. Is David afraid? Yeah, it's not a trick question. Yeah, he's afraid. David is afraid. He said earlier that there's just one step between me and what? Only one. He told Jonathan, as the Lord lives, there's only one step between me and death. He was afraid. So the title of this lesson, we haven't gotten there yet, is he flees into Philistia. And these are the cities of the Philistines who are bitter enemies of Israel. But he goes there. We'll get to why he goes there in just a moment. So these items here deal with Abishai and David. So look down to number 7. Number 7, from a hill afar off, David taunts Abner. He taunts him about having the spear and the jug of water. What kind of man are you? Number 8, as Saul recognized David's voice, David said again, what? What did David say to Saul? Why? What have I done to deserve this, David? Why? What have I done? And then, of course, Saul softens. Look at number 9. Let's fill in the blank. Saul seems to repent, saying, because my life was precious in your eyes this day. Indeed, I have played the fool and erred exceedingly. Well, isn't that nice? Next question, was this apparent reconciliation to last? No, it was not. That brings us to chapter 27, and David flees into Philistia. And you'll see those cities listed at the top of page 9 there. It's a confederation. Gaza, or Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Ekron, and Gath, and for a short time, Jophrah. This is in the Judean mountains, by the way, where all this happened with the spear and the jug of water, south of Jerusalem, in the mountains of Judea. Okay, so now we come down to the bottom of page 9. Why did David, of all places, choose to go to the land of the Philistines?
Nobody would think he would go there.
It was a pretty good idea, wasn't it? Saul wasn't going to go there. Saul was what of the Philistines? Scared. And so David's logic is, okay, he's going to try to kill me again. I've had the upper hand twice and I spared him, but he's still coming after me. And so he goes into Philistia. to get away from Saul, because he says Saul won't follow me there, and he was right. Now let's go to page 10. How long was he in Philistia? A year and 4 months. And what king does he approach? The king of Gath. Who is he?
Achish?
Yeah, Achish. Achish, whatever we want to call him. David has been close to him before, but he didn't believe it was David. Remember at the gate? At the gate when David did what? He acted crazy. He acted crazy, and Achish said, this is not David. This guy here, it's not David. He's drooling at the mouth, down onto his beard. He's scratching the gate. That's not him. Now he's come back. David has come back. And now Achish knows it's David. And he literally believes that David has defected from Israel and has come to Philistia to be with the Philistines, the mortal enemy, you see, of Israel. He really believes him, believes that he's come there for that purpose. And David said, well, I've got my men here with me, and I've got my wives, Doug. He's got his wives with him. He says, we need a what? We need a city. Give us a city where we can dwell, just us. I wanted some privacy. And so he gave him what city? Ziklag. Gave him Ziklag. And the Bible says that continued, that the kings way down the line continued to have Ziklag as theirs. And it wasn't like Jerusalem. It didn't become the city of the focal point of Israel, but it was always in the king's hands. So let's look down and look at our study guide in chapters 27, 28. How did David trick Achish concerning the battles he was fighting? Because he was going out with his men and fighting. Who did Achish think he was fighting? Israel. See, Achish thought he had defected. So who is David actually fighting?
The enemies of Israel.
The old enemies. The old perennial enemies. And by the way, it's heartbreaking. It's still going on today. Gaza's laying in ruins today. People are starving. Children are dying. It's sad. This territorial business just goes on and on and on. The same people, it would be interesting if somebody could do a genealogical study of the Palestinians and the Israelis today and see how many of them had a direct ancestral line back to this time we're studying right here, because it's never stopped. It's never stopped. And now, of course, we have another land grab going on between Russia and Ukraine. These people speak the same language. They look the same. They've been brethren for years. But it's all about territory. And now we're told it's the bloodiest war in Europe since World War II. And it's still going on this morning, today. It's all very heartbreaking that, and God told us there will always be what? Wars and rumors of wars. It's not a very good commentary on human beings and leaders and kings, and always wanting more and more land for agriculture, for minerals. Always wanting more. And it just goes on and on. Doug, it's okay? You sure?
Well,
It's not okay. Go ahead.
I'm bothered again by, David's lying to him.
That was going to be my next point. David lied again. David's not perfect, by the way. We talked about this. He got so mad at Nabal. Nabal just insulted him. But he was ready to do what? He's going to wipe Nabal out and all his people. And if not for Abigail, that's why he fell in love with Abigail. She saved him. You see, because he was sinning. And he's lying again. He ate the showbread, which was questionable. He's not perfect. But he's doing a lot of good stuff all the way through. He's a good leader. He's honoring the king even though the king's trying to kill him. And so there's this deceit going on, this lie, if you will, Doug. I'm actually not fighting, my people. I'm fighting my people's enemies. And he had to kill them all. And this is where this story for the next several chapters gets really ugly. There's killing within the family. There's slaughter. David is utterly destroying these villages and towns so that nobody can come back and tell what's going on. And it worked. He tricked Achish. And all of this to deceive Saul, to escape Saul. Because he knew Saul wouldn't come where he was. Any thoughts about all of this that's going on?
I don't want to take you down another rabbit hole, but you mentioned that David failed to kill Saul. The same is true in reverse as well. Saul threw a spear at him 3 times.
3 times, yes.
Now this is a warrior who missed 3 times, and at least once was inside a building. Wasn't
Yes,
it?
yes.
So either he was a very bad shot, or he didn't intend to kill him, or maybe God interceded again.
I would say he did intend to kill him, actually. I think the text would bear out that he actually wanted him dead. I think God is the answer to all this. And in this study, remember the sovereignty of God, the power of God, the providence of God, the perfection of God is the focus. It's the focus of all of this. And David, a man after God's own heart. Kathy?
Sometimes when you study about somebody like David, who's a man after God's own heart, and he lies, we've had brethren in India who say, well, David was a man after God's own heart, and God let him by with lying, so it was okay. And I think it's important for us to realize in Proverbs 6 that there's 7 things that God hates, and 2 of them are lying.
2 of them are liars. One is a lying tongue. The other was one who bears false witness.
Exactly.
2 are about lying. So God never condones lying. And we have talked about in this class, sometimes lying saves lives. Sometimes it protects innocent people. And we all understand that, but God never, ever condones lying. So David is in this caught in between here in the land of the Philistines. Okay, he's caught in between. Now, let's move to the next lesson. First, let's look and see if we missed anything on page 10 here. Yes, we're coming to the witch of Endor. Bible doesn't call her the witch of Endor. But Saul has been forsaken by God, and he knows it. Saul can't even approach God. He can't get the ephod and the Urim and the Thummim. He can't go through the prophets. God is not there for Saul. So Saul, in the next part of our lesson, decides he's going to do what? He's going to seek a medium. A spiritist, by the way, condemned in Leviticus, in the law. The law says do not give any heed at all to spiritists or mediums. Don't let them defile you. Don't go near them. Avoid them. And then Saul had decreed that they leave. These people, by the way, are frauds then and now. They're out there today. They're reading palms, they're reading cards, they're telling people this and telling people that. Have you seen the movie Ghost? It's okay to admit that you've seen Ghost. I know movies are bad these days. Ghost is not a terrible movie. It's kind of cool. It's kind of a cool movie because the bad people get carried away to hell, and the better people don't. But Whoopi Goldberg, and let's don't get started on her because she's crazy, but Whoopi Goldberg plays one of these spiritists. And do you remember in the movie how she and her cohorts, how stunned they were when it worked? Because they've been used to being charlatans, and then all of a sudden it worked. So here's a woman sought by Saul. She's a medium. His men say, we know a woman We know a woman. And so he goes to see her. He goes to seek her help. This is interesting. And we know her as the witch of Endor, but the Bible just calls her a medium, a spiritist of Endor. So they go at night. Saul disguises himself. He doesn't want to be known that he's, by the way, this is against the law. He disguises himself. He takes 2 men with him and they go approach her. She doesn't know who it is. He wants her help. Basically, he says, I want you to perform a what? A seance for me. She said, I can't do that. The king, she don't know it's Saul she's talking to, it's against the law. He's decreed you can't do this. And I'll get in trouble. And Saul says, you're not going to get in trouble. We're going to protect you. Well, who do you want me to call up? This is such an interesting story. And he says, I want you to call up Samuel. Her eyes are opened. Samuel, you're Saul. She realized it was Saul. And Saul comforts her and says, you're going to be safe. She calls him up. Is this real? This is real. Samuel comes up out of the ground. He comes up with his mantle on. Old Samuel, who is dead, comes up. How could she do that? She'd never done it before. She didn't do it. She didn't do it. Again, God caused this to happen. And so Samuel comes up. Saul bows down to him. And he wants to know if he will help him. God won't hear me, is basically what he says. And what was Samuel's message? How can I help you? Don't you remember? God told you all the way back in chapter 7, and then in chapter 13, and then in chapter 15 of 1 Samuel. Don't you remember? You disobeyed God. He even brings up the subject of the Amalekites, and he says, don't you remember? God's not with you anymore. I can't help you. You're not going to be king. God has taken that from you. These are words that Saul didn't want to hear again. So there's no help from Samuel. But Samuel goes further in this seance. He tells him what? He says, you and your sons are going to die. I think he said tomorrow. I think he said tomorrow you and your sons are going to die in battle, and you're going to be what? This is interesting. You're going to be with me. You're going to be with me. You're going to be with the dead souls tomorrow. We could talk all day about paradise, and, Saul wasn't going to go to a good place. Samuel was in a good place. But anyway, he's talking about the departed, the dead. You're going to be there tomorrow because you and your sons are going to die. It's just an interesting story. God did this. And Saul is in trouble with the Lord. He has nowhere to turn. Any thoughts about all that? Because we're really going fast, but we have to get through this lesson, we've got to stream through a lot of really interesting stories. This is very interesting to me. A seance in the Bible. By God's power. Samuel came up. Any questions or thoughts about that? Well, that's all covered on page 10. Samuel said, look at number 9 there, fill in the blank question. Why do you ask me? Seeing the Lord has, what? Departed from you and has become your enemy. Your enemy. Why are you asking me? All right, let's move on. Let's go to page 11. So, David's pulling his defection thing. He's tricking Achish, and so the Philistines are having this big parade. this big military parade, and they're marching by the thousands, and the princes of the Philistines are there. And these princes of the Philistines have more power than Achish, king of Gath. That's pretty obvious. And so, as this parade is happening, who's in the back? Who's in the rear? David and his men. And the princes of the Philistines go to Achish and they say what? What are these Hebrews? What are these Hebrews, our mortal enemies? What are these Hebrews doing here in our midst? And Achish has been totally taken in, and he defends David. He says he's a good man. He's a loyal man. I don't have any fault in him. He's a good man. And he tells David that he defended him. But he says, I can't control these princes, and they want you gone. They want you out of here. And so David and his men leave. He's still on the run, but not for long. It's not going to go on much longer because Saul is going to die, and Jonathan, and 2 other sons in battle. We'll come to that in just a minute. Doug, how much time do we have? About 8 minutes. Okay. Look with me on page 11. They go back to Ziklag. Look at number 4. Page 11, number 4. They go back to the city that was given them. What did they find? Burned to the ground. What about the women and children? They were just taken alive, captured. No actual harm was done to anyone, but they burned the city to the ground. Now, this wasn't the Philistines. This was the accursed Amalekites. Now, remember, Amalek was a descendant of Esau. He was a grandson of Esau. When Israel crossed the river Jordan and fought their way into the promised land, the Amalekites attacked them from the rear. They bushwhacked them. And God always hated the Amalekites for that. Somehow they always seemed to escape a few people. Saul was told to utterly destroy the Amalekites. The Bible says he did, except for the king, Agag, who ended up being killed. But apparently a remnant got away. Maybe they weren't there fighting that day. So here's the Amalekites. They come. These are perennial enemies of Israel. And they burn Ziklag down. And David and his men are very angry. They're weeping. They're bitter about this. And so David asked Abiathar for the ephod. And he approaches through the ephod, the Urim and the Thummim, and prayer, he approaches God. Do I go after the Amalekites? And what did God say? Yeah, you go get them. You go get them. And so they did. And they killed them all, right? Elon says, no, they didn't kill them all.
No, because we have history later on.
It goes on. It seems like they always have a few escape. In this case, 400 men riding on camels got away. And so I can just see them on their camels, Clyde the camel, riding off. Would you like to ride a camel? Seems like that'd be a really uncomfortable thing to do. They got this big.
It's not comfortable at all.
No, I would. And they will spit on you, and they'll bite you.
I've ridden one.
You've my grandson at the Knoxville Zoo rode one a few years ago. He was about 6 at the time, and I didn't think he would. And he said, yeah, I'd like to ride him. And so he stood in line. He rode the camel, Doug.
I just wanted to point out something that happened prior to this. David's men, after they saw that all the women and stuff, they had talked about stoning David.
They did. That's a good point. There's so many little things that I skip over. Yeah, there was a small mutiny about to happen. David's responsible for this. It's his fault. Let's kill him. But of course, again, God intervened and that didn't happen. So they destroyed the Amalekites except for 400 men who rode off on camels. But they recovered everything. All the women, the wives of David, everything is recovered and brought back. And then the next story is the battle with the Philistines. Saul is killed. Jonathan is killed. 2 other sons are killed in the battle, just as Samuel said they would be. And just as David had said earlier, God will take care of Saul in due time. I'm not going to raise my hand against the Lord's anointed. So how did Saul die? This is all on pages 11 and 12. There, beginning down there about number 8 on page 11. Page 11. Mount Gilboa. How did Saul die? Fell on his sword. Fell on his own sword. He committed suicide. Harry-carry, as they say. Was he dying? He was dying. He had been shot full of arrows. He had been riddled with arrows in the battle. And he didn't want the Philistines to mutilate him anymore. So he asked his armor bearer to do what? To kill him. But the armor bearer said, I can't do it. I can't do that. So Saul fell on his own sword. And then the armor bearer fell on his sword. And Jonathan was also killed, which must have broken David's heart, because he was closer than a brother to him. And the other 2 sons were killed also.
3 minutes.
3 minutes is good. Thank you, Doug. They didn't just kill Saul, or Saul killed himself, but he was dying. They cut his head off. Then they took Saul's body and the 3 sons, and they nailed them up on a wall like trophies at Beth Peor. That was horrible. You may say Saul had it coming. David would never have done that to him. They cut his head off, and they took his armor to the temple, put it in the temple of Ashtaroth, a pagan temple, hung his body up on the wall. And the brave men of Jabesh Gilead went and took it down. Probably had to fight their way in. They took the bodies down. They burned them, and then they took them and buried them proper. Okay, that was the end of Saul. So there's no more of this Saul business. It's going away. Any comments or questions about the death of Saul? We have about 1 minute left.
One comment on.
Yes, sir.
If somebody had thrown a spear at me, I don't know that I would be fighting for him on Gilboa.
You know, he was loyal to his father.
Yes, he was.
He loved David. But he besought his father on David's behalf more than once. This is a tragic thing for David. There's no question about it. There's great weeping going to occur. Now,
Jonathan was a man after God's own heart also.
he was.
He was incredible.
Jonathan is a great Bible character.
Yeah.
He's a great Bible character, and he dies. Now, if we just jump over, well, we're going to read. We'll start next week's lesson with a just little short ending to this. This guy shows up, who is an Amalekite, an alien, and says and tells the story to David about the death of Saul and Jonathan. It's very interesting, the story he told and what happened after that. And that we're almost to the point where David becomes what? King. It's going to be very interesting. You think, okay, this is good. Things are going to get good. No, they're going to get ugly. Things are going to get real ugly. David's going to stumble. Thank you. Appreciate all your participation.